Hello and welcome to my channel When the Stars Aligned. My name is Kelly Rowland. I want to share a video today that's very close to my heart because it's been a long journey. And the title of this video, Things I Wish I Knew About My First Phase as a 6-line person. So this will be relevant to you if you are a 4-6, 6-2, or 6-3. Those are the 3 profiles out of the 12 that have an active 6-line. So I am currently 27 and a half, and the timing does matter. That's why I say it, because I'm slowly emerging out of my first phase as a 6-2, as a 6-line being. And I first found out about human design when I was about 21 years old, maybe a little younger or older. Around that age, it's when human design first entered my life. I was living in Bali, and I actually first found out about the gene keys. I was doing this healing retreat with a partner at the time, and we met this guy who was really big into human design, but he was also into gene keys. And I was like, what are these things? And I remember the first thing I saw was actually, I saw the Gene Keys book sitting on the coffee table, and I was like, okay, that looks really fascinating. And then a day later, I learned about human design or something like that. But I was very young. And then I found out I was a 6-line, and I had it explained to me that 6-line people move through 3 core phases of life. Now, when I learned about this, you know, my common sense, I got a bit of a quick mind, sometimes a little cynical, but I love all of these things. And I think it's healthy to have a level of cynicism, because then we can really sharpen ourselves through practice and being curious, right? So anywho, I found out I was a 6-line. I was like, well, isn't that everybody's life? Doesn't everybody go through an experience of your first 30 years? It's all trial and error. And then you integrate the wisdom. And then when you get older, you really step into your maturity and wisdom. I'm like, isn't that everybody? But what I learned in the years to come and through really working with the system on an embodied level is that, 6-line people, yes, this is genuine life experiences that a lot of people go through, but 6-line people kind of amplify and are here to experience an even more potent or more amplified, perhaps, or enhanced, heightened, intensified, that's the word, an intensified experience of this human existence, because 6-line is transpersonal. So that's the first thing. I wish I would have known more about this transpersonal nature, and I'm gonna share more about what I mean by that. This is probably gonna be a long video, but if you're here for it, you're here for it. Transpersonal means that as a 6-line, this life isn't purely about just you and you going it on your own and having your own experiences. It's actually what you're learning is reflective of something so much greater than you, which is why 6-lines can sometimes feel kind of alien-like and we're on the fray of society. And I can't tell you how many times I've felt that. And when I didn't know about that, I just felt like I was strange. I felt like I was weird. I was like, why can't I just do what all the kids my age are doing? Not really why, because I didn't want to be doing it, but I definitely felt somewhat ostracized, or I could feel, walking through the world, people just kind of looked at me oddly. And I was like, what's going on? And it's because it's a transpersonal nature. You're here to be experiencing a greater perspective on what the human experience is. And that's why I think it takes time for a 6-line to mature and develop, because it would be way too much to be holding all of that awareness in, a 20-year-old body. Your system would fry. You need to, soften into it. When you get a new pair of shoes, or really high quality leather shoes, it takes some time for them to get to know your feet and for the leather to soften, become more beautiful and form-fitting to you. But when it form-fits you, my God, you won't find a better fit. And to me, that's what this 6-line journey is like. It's highly transpersonal. So it's you come into this human vessel, I'm getting real alien out here. You come into this human vessel and you have to learn how to soften into it. And realize that a lot of the experiences you're having are because, not to disidentify with it, but it's because you're here to help other people. And you will come to a place in your life, it could happen in the first phase, the second phase, the third phase. I find it does not happen when you're 50. You don't have to wait till you're 50, which is another point of this video. But so much of what you're experiencing is to help you have a greater understanding of the larger whole of humanity. And that's what transpersonal is. Like, it's not limited to just me and my karma and my life and my needs and desires and wants. It's how is what I'm experiencing helping me tap into a greater collective truth, helping me tap into greater collective threads and waves. And I know that can sound kind of far out, but that's something I've really learned over the last 7 years of knowing about human design. It's like, oh, what I'm experiencing is not just like limited to me. It's teaching me how I can be more empathic and compassionate and attuned to the greater collective. And my life is actually hugely about, of course, I've got my own stuff, my own shit, my own problems, my own growth, my own wonderfulness, but it's actually like, how can I be a part of the lives of others effectively and learn from what I've experienced and then like teach from that. So that's one thing I wish I would have known earlier. My life is highly transpersonal as a 6th line, so I don't have to take things so personally. That would have saved me a lot of pain. I was realizing it's not all so personal. It's not so personal that people might look at me kind of strangely. It's not so personal that I decided to take a very different path in life. I'm here to expand my perception on reality and understand the greater collective currents. And know that what happens to me is not limited to just me. It's helping me tap into something. If I feel this, thousands of other people have felt this. So how can I really get to know it, get the wisdom from it, and then support and empower others? Now, second thing I wish I would have known, small tidbit here, I think that the first phase is, we're told it's 0 to 30. I actually feel like we start preparing for the second phase when we hit 27. Because I believe I actually read this with the 6th line years ago, that it's around 28 that you make a shift into the second phase. But there's kind of a grace period and an interim period of like what's happening. That's also the time of Saturn return, so there's like a lot happening all at once. But I've started to feel a shift when I hit 27 years old into more of my second phase nature, which is called going on the roof, which is stepping out of this highly experimental dance of trying all sorts of things. Can't wait to tell you my next point. I've noticed this last year I have felt a bit pulled back. Like even with YouTube, I took a huge step back from sharing because I was going through so much of my own personal integration. I had like 3 years of really intense breakdown internally, psychologically. Like on the outside, it may have looked like I was fine, but I was going through a lot of like metabolizing the death of an old life chapter, graduating out of maidenhood, you could say, really like getting some growing up lessons and having to give myself the space to go through inner transformation and knowing that I couldn't really show up authentically because I needed to just be with letting everything crumble, honestly. Not having such a strong ego identity with things like YouTube or Instagram or teaching, but like, okay, I'm a human and I'm going through this deconstruction process. I need to give myself space to do that and not cling on to any kind of identity or foundation. So coming out the other side of that, I can feel now I'm like preparing for the roof, which is a phase of a lot of integration. And when a 6 line hits your second phase, this sense of trial and error and being on that roller coaster of life as a 3 line starts to subside, and it's more so a journey of like, think of like the butterfly journey. Great for a 6-2 analogy or a 6 line. You start as a caterpillar, 3 line, walking through the earth, eating your food, trying the different things. And then you turn to goo. And I feel like that is the initiation of like tail end of the first phase into the second phase is like, I'm going into goo. And if you've never seen the journey of a butterfly, please look it up. It's fascinating. Literally, the caterpillar turns into goo. Like its body decomposes. And then it's in this cocoon, and there's this alchemical process that happens that then creates a butterfly. And I feel like the gooey part and then the cocoon part is the second phase. It's okay to let yourself turn to goo. It's okay to let that first chapter of your life totally decompose. Like I had to let go of a lot of stuff. Friendships, relationships, homes, family dynamics, solid sources of income. I let it all go to goo. And maybe I have a little bit more of a propensity for that because I'm like Scorpio stellium woman, so I kind of live for that process of transmutation and like take me to the edge and I'm gonna find my way home kind of thing. Like it does a lot for me in terms of maturation, even though it's painful at times. But it's so vital, that stage of like going through the goo and emerging. Not even emerging, but like being then in the cocoon. And I feel like the second phase is that. Like you can still, it doesn't mean that you need to like block off from the world, but there is a sense of like, whoa, I'm like figuring out who this like avatar of, you know, insert your name is. Who is this? Who is this being? Who do I want to be in the world? What's really authentic for me? That's something I also wish I knew about sixth line earlier on. Your journey is literally about authenticity. And that's amazing because you don't have to be like anybody else. You don't have to try to be some kind of title or some kind of status or some kind of important person or some kind of ideal of who you think you should be. It's actually all about your authenticity. Sixth line is like the pinnacle of authentic embodiment. That is where you're going to find the right relationships. That is where you're going to find the right career path. That is where you're going to find yourself stepping into power and influence, is because you're being authentic. And what does authentic mean? It's you're not hiding who you really are. You're not trying to be an idea of what other people want you to be or what you think they want you to be. It's actually less a journey of becoming, and it's more a journey of pulling back the things that you've taught yourself to be that are just not true. Most important thing I would say I've ever learned about embodied sixth line energy. So that's the second thing. Third thing, if I had known this in my first phase, now being a woman who's in the tail end of my first phase, I would have had more compassion with myself. Compassion around change. Because as a sixth line being, you signed up for, right, this intensified experience of the human experience, you know, what everyone goes through. You get that, but you get it intensified. I've gone through so much change in my life, I can't even begin to tell you. Like if you knew my backstory, where I came from, where I grew up, family dynamics, violence, abuse, addiction, not personally, but like within my setting, and like where I am now, relationships, God, like so much. I've been through so much, and I'm not saying this to like gas myself up here or anything, but honestly, I've just been through a lot in my life. And I think there were periods where I suffered unnecessarily because I carried shame. I carried shame and judgment. Why did it turn out that way? And why did that change? And why did I need to do that? Like I knew what I did was right, but why did it have to be so hard? Or why did I grow up in the family I grew up in? Or because I grew up in that setting, I can't have this. Like I carried some shame and guilt and judgment. Whereas now, having kind of gone through the washer cycles of that, rinse and repeat, I realized, oh, I just signed up for a really full existence, to taste a lot of spectrums of life. And I have no shame, no guilt for what my journey has been. It's taken me a while to get there. Sometimes it took me unnecessarily suffering from how things changed. But when I gave myself more permission and more compassion of, oh, I came to be a very evolutionary being, which means I came to learn my own ins and outs and to experience a lot of life, there's no shame. And coming back to love, coming back to trust, coming back to compassion, and choosing to just like let my past be what it is. Of course, gain the wisdom, gain the lessons from different experiences, but like make peace with it and keep moving forward. So I would have told my first phase that, keep moving forward. Now this might be the final one because I could go on for hours. And I'm actually, you'll see below, I'm actually teaching a class for 6-2s. This is not only for first phase, but this is a full immersive masterclass for 2 hours with a Q&A at the end, going into the embodied life experience of being a 6-2. So really looking at each of the phases, getting into the nitty-gritty of 6-2, what your strengths and weaknesses are, relationship dynamics, ideal, purpose, and dharma trajectories, all of this good stuff. But the final piece I want to share here of what I wish I knew as a 6 line in my first phase was, even though I've said a lot about having so much experience in life, I actually would have encouraged myself to, I feel so happy when I say this, like I hope there is a first line, a first phase 6 line in here who's like, under the age of 25. Like, if you are, please tell me below in the comments. I'm just cheering you on. Like, if I could impart any wisdom, it would be, I wish I actually took more chances. Like, and some people in my life, if they heard me say that, they'd probably be like, whoa, Kelly, what more could you have done? But like, now that I'm at the tail end, I'm like, wow, my 3-line phase is coming to an end. And I'm kind of seeing with more maturity of, wow, this whole phase was literally about experimentation, about like diving into life as deeply and richly as I can. And what I would suggest to my younger self in the, you know, the newness of the first phase, so anywhere up until like 25, 26 years old, would be like, try even more. Like, let yourself fail, Kelly. Let yourself go out on a limb. As long as you're not putting yourself in physical danger or harm, like, try creating that business. Try that relationship. Say yes to that opportunity. Like, experiment even more. Like, go in as much as you can. Dive into the palette as richly as you can and experience it all. Because even if it's weird or challenging or heartbreaking, like, it's gonna give you this fuel that will metabolize over the next 60 years, you know? Like, the more richly you experience this first phase, I truly believe the more rich the wisdom, insights, and results are gonna be once that all metabolizes on the other side. So I would tell myself, like, experiment more, bet on yourself, take that risk, do that thing that you don't know if you can actually do it. Like, that is by far, like, you can probably tell by how excited I am when I'm saying this, like, that is what I would encourage. Like, if I could have been the mentor for my 20-year-old self, I'd be like, go all in. If you have a response of like, yeah, that excites me and it's kind of scary, but I need to try that, give it your all. And I still have, you know, a little bit of time left, so let's see what I choose to experiment with, but that would by far be a piece of wisdom I would love to impart to my 6-line in her first phase. Yeah. That's what I've got for 6 lines in the first phase. And one final thing I'd say too, and I got this early on, I was like, oh, I think human design isn't fully correct about this one. You don't have to wait until you're 50. So if you're a 6-line and you're like, oh, I really wish I didn't have to wait till I was 50 to like step into my power, but I'm just gonna wait, that's such a waste of your precious life force. Like, I started teaching things that I was passionate about when I was like 20, because I had inspiration and I had fire in my heart to do that and passion. So my perspective is like, you don't have to wait. It's because honestly, like, some people might not like to hear this. We're going to go into this deeper in the masterclass, but it's not like life is just going to like bop you with the fairy wand when you're 50 and all of a sudden your purpose is going to be illuminated and you're going to have all these people wanting to work with you. Like, I truly don't believe that. I think it's something that compounds and builds over time. It just feels more, maybe it feels more comfortable or it feels more easy when you're older, but you don't have to wait. So please don't wait. Like, try things out. So I'm going to cap it here on the 6-2 profile or the 6-line profile and things I would love to have told myself in my first phase. If you're a first phase 6-line, please let me know below. How old are you? What is your experience? I'm cheering you on. And if you want to come to the 6-2 embodied profile masterclass, you're going to find that link below. And I'm really excited. I've been wanting to work with just 6-2s for a while now. So it doesn't matter what your energy type is. You could be a manifestor, a projector, a reflector. This is for 6-2s. And I will go into the nuances of, you know, profile by type. So how is your profile differently? How is your profile uniquely experienced as a generator versus a reflector? So yeah. 6-2 masterclass, and there will be a live recording and a playback of that. So if you can't attend live, you can get the playback. But yeah, have a beautiful day.